Welcome back, guys. And I just want to say, first of all, that I'm proud of you. I know that's kind of weird to say to start out, but I mean, like anybody who watches these videos in a TOEFL Facebook group is really motivated to learn about the TOEFL and to do well on it. And so I just want to say thank you for being motivated. I've had my whole life I've been teaching students who weren't that motivated. So I'm very thankful for you, and I hope you stay motivated, okay? And this is a great lesson to be motivated to listen to, because this is really going to change the way that you approach the listening. So most students think about, how can I understand everything when I'm listening? That's okay, but it's much more helpful for you to understand how to answer questions without listening, because the questions are what's important. Answering the questions correctly are what's important for the TOEFL, at least. So I'm going to teach you today one of my best lessons. The best lesson I teach for TOEFL listening is how to answer questions without listening. Okay? So I hope you're excited. I hope you have downloaded the free PDF, the free listening passage that you can listen to the passage and then answer questions about it. Okay, so hopefully you have that, because I'm going to do that now. Now, if you haven't downloaded the TOEFL listening passage and answered the questions, make sure you do that. I want you to do that first before you come here, because that's going to be what's most helpful for you, is by you actually trying to do this, you practicing, you getting the questions correct or incorrect, and then coming back to this video. Okay, so really important that you actually do this, that you actually do the listening passage and try to answer the questions. When you download the listening passage, you should have seen a link right here, and when you press that link, I'm not going to do it now, but when you press one of these two, they're both the same link, you go to the passage and you listen to the passage, okay? And this is pretty much what you'll hear on the TOEFL listening section for the conversation. Now, let's pretend that you didn't hear anything. Okay, so let's pretend we didn't hear the passage at all. We didn't hear anything. All we have is the questions. That's what we're going to do. Let's do it. So, first question is, why does the student go to see his professor? Now, the first thing you might notice too is that I wrote in the big yellow highlighted thing, so I should talk about that first, is this topic is a slightly complicated problem that must be solved in 3 minutes. Okay, now why is this important? When you listen to a conversation, it's between a student and usually a professor, but could be another campus worker. And the student has a problem, and they try to find solutions to the problem. And they're going to talk about this problem for 3 minutes and possible solutions to this problem. Now, if I have a problem, like let's say, for example, I can't find my shoes, right? I don't have to have a 3-minute conversation with you about it. You can just say, where did you put it last? I put it there. Oh, it's there. Okay, finished, right? If, let's say, for example, a student goes to a professor and says that, what time does class start? Class starts at 9 o'clock. Okay, finished. We don't need to have a very long conversation about this, right? So the choices have to be something that is a kind of complicated problem, something that is a little difficult to solve, okay, that does require a little bit of a conversation. Let's look at the choices. A, to give his contact information to her. Nope. X. I know without listening that it's not A. Because if I give you my contact information, that takes very little time. Here's my name, here's my address, here's my phone number, finished. This isn't a problem. This is just giving somebody something. Remember, these conversations are problems that have to be solved, so they have to be a little complicated. A is definitely not the answer, okay? B, to complain about another professor's assignment. I do not think that's the answer, because complaining is not a problem. I don't like my professor, he did give me this assignment, oh man, it sucks, blah, blah, blah. So what? What am I going to do about it? You can't, somebody else can't do anything about another professor's assignment, okay? This might be the answer. I haven't heard it, okay? I haven't heard the listening. Well, I'm imagining I haven't heard it. But I don't think that's the answer, okay? Because complaining has nothing to do with trying to find a solution to a problem. Okay. C, to find more information on the topic he needs to research. Okay, that seems okay. Is that if I need to find information, maybe I need to ask some questions, okay? D, to discuss an assignment he has written. And that one seems okay too, for the most part, that maybe he did an assignment and then he wants the teacher to tell him why he got a bad grade or what's good, what's not good. So C and D seem like a good two choices, okay? So without listening, without knowing anything about the conversation, I'm just going to pick either C or D. You can choose which one you pick. I'm going to pick C, okay? So we narrowed it down to a 50-50 shot without even listening. Okay, remember, you're going to listen to this, actually, when you take the TOEFL, but I did this without even listening. Okay, the next tip I have for you here. Answer without listening. Not listen without listening, answer without listening. The campus staff are always helpful, okay? Sometimes you will be given choices that are too negative. Remember that college campuses are helpful places. They're like heaven, you know. They're just very, like, the staff is helpful. They want to know the truth of things. They want things to be fair and equal. So another tip that I didn't write here is that if a student wants to make up an assignment, a teacher will probably say no because it's not fair to everybody else. So that's another thing, that the solutions have to be fair. But anyway, so the campus staff are always helpful. So what do I mean? Again, if a choice is too negative, then it's not going to be correct. So let's look at A, B, C, and D. So the question is, what is the professor confused about? So this is a detailed question. A, whether the student is taking her class or Professor Saeed's. You know, I don't think that's the answer. Just to go back to the first tip that I just said. What's the first tip? You remember what I say? Huh? It's a slightly complicated problem that has to be solved in a couple minutes. So if they're confused about that, that can be solved very quickly. But this is a detail, so maybe it could be some detail that they mentioned, so I'll just leave it alone for now. B, why the student is asking her questions about Professor Saeed's class. Yeah, this is too negative. Like, I don't know. Professors can be like, why are you doing this? Why are you asking me? But teachers don't act that way to students. At least they're not supposed to. And on the TOEFL, they certainly don't. Excuse me. I have a little bit of a cold, so forgive me if I sound a little nasally. So that's why I don't think it's B. It's a little too negative. Okay. C, why the student is interested in the courses she teaches. Okay, maybe that's confusing. And D, whether the student is actually enrolled in the university. Okay, so I'm going to eliminate D as well. Because if a student, these type of TOEFL questions, these TOEFL listening passages, again, it's between a student and a professor. You know, if the student is not enrolled in the college, they're not going to be talking about this. So sometimes there's some choices that just common sense, you just think about it for a minute, think about it, it's a TOEFL listening passage. A student has a problem, you think about the structure. Remember, you want to understand that this is not everyday life. This is not something you see in a movie. This is a TOEFL listening passage. It's very different. It's very narrow, very specific. So you have to think specifically here. If a student is not enrolled in the college, that's not something that the TOEFL will have in a passage. Cut it. I have A or C. Why the student is interested or whether the student is taking her class, I really don't know. It could be one, you know, maybe it could be A, that she's confused. That could be something that's confused about or interested. I don't know. Let's say A. Okay, I'll just pick A. All right, and I'll move on to the next one. All right. So again, I haven't listened. Haven't listened to a thing, right? We're doing this based on common sense, based on understanding the structure, and based on what you're listening to, okay? Next one, number 3. You can answer this without ever listening. Pay attention to tone of voice. Okay, so This is a question, you'll have at least one of these in every passage where they repeat part of the passage. And these questions are usually a kind of function question or inference question where you have to figure out why the professor says something. Why does the professor say this? Why does the student say that? What can be implied? What can you infer when the teacher says this? And so on. So they actually play a part of the passage again. Now what you want to do is that, I don't have a lot of tips for this one really, except to pay attention to tone of voice. How somebody is saying something. So you can understand the meaning of something by how somebody says it. So just to give you an example really quickly, if somebody asks me, how was dinner? And I say, it was good. Yeah, it was good. Yeah. It was great. Yeah. Not a great dinner. Okay. Or if somebody asks me, do you want to help me move into a new house? I'm like, yeah, maybe. So my tone of voice, you can tell that I'm not too crazy about it, right? So you want to listen to tone of voice. And this one, you don't have to listen to the passage. You don't have to listen to the passage here because they're going to play part of the passage again, all right? So I'm actually just going to stop it so you can listen to it really quickly. So go ahead, listen to this part of the passage here.
What does the professor imply when she says this?
Well, that makes more sense in one respect, but I still want to clear one thing up. If you're in World History 203, I'm guessing you're an undergraduate. And as you know, undergraduates are not generally permitted to take grad level classes.
Okay, so then you have to try to figure out what the answer is based on what you listen to, okay? And the answer, by the way, is B. Okay, that part of the situation is clearer, so because she says that, okay, that makes sense in one respect, but I'm still confused about, and then she says something else that she's confused about. So she understands part of the situation, but she's still confused by other things. So that's it. Didn't listen. Again, haven't listened to the passage. Let's keep going. The next one. Look for answers that say the same thing in different words. They're both wrong. Okay. Now this is a little bit higher level tip. It doesn't always work, of course. Not all of these will work. But sometimes they say the same idea in a choice in a different way. And let me show you what I mean here. If you look at A. Let's look at the question. By the end of the conversation, how does the professor feel about the student's research? A, she believes she can help him with some resources. B, she feels like he doesn't need to talk to her. C, she thinks he may be better off discussing it with Professor Saeed. And D, she feels that he isn't ready for graduate level courses. Okay, there's two choices that say the same thing, B and C. She feels like he doesn't need to talk to her. She thinks he may be better off discussing it with Professor Saeed. Better off discussing with somebody else, doesn't need to talk to her, same idea, same thing. They're both wrong because they say the same thing. Again, you want to be able to think like a kind of strategist. You want to be able to give yourself the best opportunity to get the correct answer, okay? So you want to be able to read these choices well, to understand like, oh, okay, these kind of say the same thing, so they're probably both wrong, all right? A, she believes she can help him with some resources, or D, she feels that he isn't ready for graduate level courses, okay? So it says by the end of the conversation, so there should be some type of solution by the end. Remember, it's a problem and there should be some type of solution or ideas of how to solve a problem. So I think it's going to be A. She believes she can help him. Okay, now this last tip, last one, most important. If you stayed till the end, again, I want to say it again, I really respect and admire you, and that I'm shocked that you're still watching this, really. But I hope you find it helpful, and this is the most important one. This is a part of our TOEFL emergency course, the TOEFL emergency course that I made. It has all of this kind of information and much more that you can check out at TOEFLspeakingteacher.com. I have to promote it. Okay, let me give you the last tip here. The last tip is take notes and listen carefully because this doesn't always work. Yes, most important is that tips and tricks and strategies and so on are very helpful, but you have to know what you're doing. You have to be able to listen to English. You have to be able to read this stuff. You have to be able to know this stuff. I mean, this is a test to see if your English level is good enough to go to college. And some of you, it might not be. Okay, so sometimes you're just going to have to answer the question. So for this one here, number 5, what point does the student make about his study habits? He prefers studying with his friends. He mostly studies at home. He almost always studies in the library. He likes studying in places that are quiet. All of these seem okay to me. They all seem like okay choices. I have to listen to this. I have to listen carefully. I have to take notes to be able to answer this question. So in the first video, I mentioned that, you could still get a decent score without notes. You could still get like a 23 or 24 without notes. But if you want to get to the higher level, you have to take notes. And this is why. Because you just sometimes have to listen, and you have to be able to know what was said in the listening. Okay, so that's it. How to answer questions without listening. Okay, just to give you a quick recap, let's go through them. The first one is to make sure that you understand that this topic is a complicated problem that must be solved in 3 minutes. It's going to be something that is a little difficult. Giving a contact information is not that complicated. It's very simple. Okay, so it needs to be a little bit complicated and solvable. 2, campus staff are always helpful. They want to help you. They're not going to be too negative, so get rid of choices that are too negative. You can answer this without even listening. These types of questions, pay attention to tone of voice when they say listen again to part of the passage. This is not a detail. This is an inference. You have to kind of figure out what the meaning is, okay? Look for answers that say the same thing in different words. They're both wrong. This is very useful in both the reading and the listening. So pay attention to this, especially for choices that you're not sure about. You can eliminate 2 very easily if 2 say the same thing in different ways, which it does pretty often. And take notes, listen carefully, because this doesn't always work, okay? So no matter how many strategies and tips, sometimes you just got to be a good listener, okay? Hope you guys find that helpful. Again, TOEFL emergency course, you get all of this and more, and you can finish it all in just 3 days. But if not, stay tuned. I'm going to keep releasing stuff for TOEFL listening, and I will see you guys next time. All right, take care, stay motivated. Bye-bye. Bye.